St Kilda's gradual growth from minnows to mentioned in flag discussions had been slow but steady before this year. Now, with a winless streak stretching to 5 games and some of the worst goal-kicking seen at the elite level in decades, major questions have emerged. So what exactly has gone wrong at the Saints and what can they do to fix it? Round 7 TEAMTHE numbers don't lie. Right now, St Kilda is a bottom 4 side in almost every aspect. From the lows of 2014, when the Saints won just 4 games on the wooden spoon with a percentage of 60.8, Alan Richardson's team has grown year on year. Brad Johnson joins the Fox Footy podcast with Tom Morris, Max Lawton and Ben Waterworth. Listen below, or tap here to subscribe. In iTunes, a percentage of 78 in 2015, then up to 96 and 97 in the previous 2 seasons, gave a clear sign of their improvement as the club rose from 18th to 14th, and finally to just outside the 8. But after 6 rounds in 2018, the Saints are languishing in 16th with a percentage of 71, barely above the winless Lions and Blues, and a chasm below the contenders. St Kilda was won just 8 quarters this season. With a game style that is supposed to be marked by pressure and contested possessions, they instead rank 13th and 16th in those categories, respectively. Percentage, 16th best. Points for, 17th best. Points against, 13th best. It's all the same ugly story. Richo denies coaching Ref 201, it's clear that they haven't achieved what we thought and probably what they all thought internally they would. Western Bulldogs great Brad Johnson told the Fox Footy podcast, they're down in a number of areas, and that's in relation then to what they're putting on the scoreboard. Johnson believes Hawthorn's win over St Kilda showed exactly what the Saints are missing. Hawk Isaac Smith starred on the outside, and Alan Richardson had no one to call on to do anything similar. If you've got outside run, it complements what you've got inside, Johnson said. Hawthorn has that with Isaac Smith, but St Kilda doesn't really have that. They're expecting Jack Stephen to win it inside and then to win it outside. They need to complement that somehow, but that hasn't even been their biggest problem. Saint misses the unmissable 038. The GOALKICKINGST Kilda is in danger of reaching a historic low with its inaccuracy. The Saints have kicked 52 goals and 76 behind so far this season, for accuracy of 41%. Misses on the full not included. If that holds until the end of the season, it will mark the worst goal kicking recorded in the VFL or AFL since 1964, when Richmond went at 40% kicking 152 goals and 231 behinds. It's unclear whether it's a mental issue, a physical one or pure luck. It's likely a combination of 3 in some form. Jaron Geary looks dejected after St Kilda's loss to Hawthorn. Photo by Michael Wilson, AFL Media, Getty Images. Source, Getty Images. Broadly in the AFL we are seeing terrible conversion once the ball moves inside 50. The 4 worst conversion rates from an inside 50 to a goal on record since 1999, all belong to teams in the 2018 season. St Kilda is converting 16.9% of its inside 50s into goals. Brisbane 18.5%, Carlton 18.8%, and the Western Bulldogs 19.2% are only slightly better. Johnson suggested that the Saints are being required to do so much running for their structures that once they get the ball forward, they are fatigued, thus missing shots. Yet it's not just in goal kicking where St Kilda's players are struggling. The PLAYERSIT has been stated many times that this is a team without stars. Champion Data's numbers suggest the Saints had just one elite player heading into this season, and that was Jack Sinclair, as a winger, off a small sample size. So when their best players aren't performing, it doesn't matter what structure they are attempting to play. Johnson, when asked which was most to blame for St Kilda's start between the list management, the coaching and the players themselves, picked the latter. They've got their structures in play where they can actually get the ball into some decent areas. I think the players are letting down with execution at the moment. Johnson said, that's just the reality of when a side's not going well. Generally you've got the plans in place, but if you haven't got the players to implement the plan, that becomes an issue. Horrific elbow breaks jaw 0-14. Some of the Saints' key players who were expected to lift in 2018 simply haven't, with year-on-year statistical drops telling the story. Seb Ross, 29.9 disposals and 5 clearances on average to 26.5 and 2.8. Jack Steele, 22.1 disposals and 3.9 clearances to 19.6 and 2.8. And Jack Sinclair, 20.8 and 2.3 to 16.8 and 1.5, are all down. Jack Billings has kicked 4.11. Jack Nunes is having 4 fewer disposals a game. And all of this has been compounded by the losses to retirement of Nick Riewoldt and Lee Montagna. Many criticized St Kilda in recent years for being too reliant on the pair. That seems to be playing out in 2018, according to Johnson. Yes, they've got some young players at St Kilda, but those two guys created work rate, he said, one from Lee Montagna off the back half of the ground, and I think Shane Savage is playing okay at times, but his skill level has let him down. Rarely would Montagna turn the ball over from 20 to 30 meters kicks. Drugs found in Bomber's House 114. Then you've got Riewoldt, who was the presenter. He would present on a regular basis, he'd be in your vision and create that outlet for you, going forward and on the wing when they needed to, so I think the absence of those two has been more significant than what they thought. It hasn't just been an attack where the Saints have had issues, though. Their defense has not held up under the manic pressure most teams can now put on in the forward half. One of Johnson's major questions for St Kilda heading into 2018 was how their back six would handle that pressure. The answer so far is poorly. Nathan Brown is a straight-line sort of player. Jake Carlisle can fluctuate in and out of games. He can play some ripping games. He can make some errors that will really cost your team, he said. And then, Jaron Geary is their captain, but he can be exposed one-on-one. Shane Savage can be as well. If the opposition have just got weight of numbers coming through their back six, which we've seen, then the floodgates will open at some point. We talk about their conversion, but they've also leaked a number of scores to the opposition because they just can't handle what's coming their way. The full extent of congestion 352, the ANSWERSTHE negatives are there, and they're clear. But we've seen teams turn things around mid-season before, and surely there are answers to at least some of St Kilda's problems. At selection, Johnson suggested bringing in 2016's pick 39, Josh Battle, who has played just one career game in 2017. I thought they would have played Josh Battle more in the early rounds to complement that loss of Nick Riewoldt, because he is in some ways the worker that Riewoldt was, Johnson said. He'll push to the logos, he'll help defensively, and he has the ability to get back. He's a great endurance player. He's been an emergency a couple of times. Then there is the structure. Johnson saw enough in the round 5 draw against GWS to suggest a change for Alan Richardson out of that game. They played their best footy 2 weeks ago against GWS when they sent 6 forwards forward of the ball, he said. Coaches have hijacked game 255. The word around at the time was there was discussions with players and the coaches around doing that. I'm not sure how that panned out last week. But the Giants game was a significant shift from the playing group and coaches in terms of structure, so when they break out of a stoppage or look up with that quick kick away, they're kicking to one-on-ones, not two-on-ones where it's a quick turnover and goes back over their heads. If they can create even numbers forward of the ball, I think they're going to be in better shape than playing the loose of Jake Carlisle back behind. They may be able to manufacture that if the opposition sends a half forward up behind the stoppage, and then they can just drop Carlisle off and someone takes his man. It's not going to be easy to rescue this season. Yes, Sydney played finals from 0 to 6, but they're the incredibly rare exception. It may instead be about trying to limit their losses. Because if this trend continues, it's going to be bad news for the players, the staff, and perhaps most notably, the coach.